In May 1898, Siddhanta Darpana was published in a form of a book. Professor Rai had written preface of Siddhanta Darpana in a 58 pages tribute to the genius of Pathani Samata. This, as per his opinion, Pathani Samata was the last Pathani Samata was the last in the series of naked astronomers of India, and his work was the last Siddhanta of ancient Indian astronomy. In November 1899, the British journal Knowledge commented of all numerous works on astronomy that have been published within the last few years, this is by far the most extraordinary and in some respect the most constructive. It demonstrates the degree of accuracy with which was possible in astronomical observations before invention of the telescope, and it enables us to watch as it were one of the astronomers of the hoary forgotten antiquity actually at his work before us today. The whole state was watching closely the accurate predictions of total solar eclipse of 1868 by Samanta and subsequent wide coverage in newspapers of the day. So when Pathani Samanta's predictions came true and it was widely reported in the local newspaper, Gajapati, king of Puri, he also came to know about it, and he invited Pathani Samanta and conferred the title Harichandana Mahapatra in 1870. This is the most dignified of the recognitions that was conferred on Pathani Samanta. The then British government, after coming to know of the scholarly works of Samanta, decided to felicitate him with honor of Mahamahopadhyaya in 1893. So Samanta lived in a rural setup, which is Khandapada, which was very far from any communicable place. So he had to move to Calcutta by ship, and because he was a Orthodox Hindu, traveling in a ship was something that was not an acceptable form of going to a place. So Samanta declined to go to Calcutta for the felicitation, or else the then Viceroy Lansdowne himself wished to felicitate Pathani Samanta.
Good evening and namaste to all the viewers that have joined us today. I welcome you to another episode of Indic Talks organized by Center for Indic Studies. Today we will talk about the unsung positional astronomer of Odisha, Pathani Samanta. Samanata Chandra Sekhar was born in 1835 in a remote feudatory state of Odisha. His works in astronomy earned him name in international circles, and he was conferred with the title of Mahamahopadhyaya from the British administration. Sunil Kumar Biswal is our speaker today, who will explain us about this titan. And he himself is an engineer and an entrepreneur. He is a HAM radio operator with Call Sign and an amateur astronomer. He is passionate about communicating science to common man in simple language. I welcome you, sir, and I request you to take over from here.
Thank you, Ajashri. So, thanks for giving me this opportunity. Shall we switch to our presentation? Okay. Now, once again, thanks Center for Indic Studies of Indus University for giving me this opportunity to present life sketch of a great son of soil of Odisha, or we can say India, whose name is Pathani Samanta. He is one of unsung positional astronomers of Odisha. So in subsequent slides, we'll get to know about him and his work. And so we'll move on to the next slide, Ojasvi. Next slide, please. Okay. Now, before we begin our talk formally, I would like you to take back in time to a different era. So it was on 18th August 1868, the day that I wish to start my talk about this great man. In those days, Odisha was actually not in a very advanced social condition. The British took over India in 1803. So unlike other places of India, which got some time to actually match with the kind of developmental initiatives initiated by the British, Odisha was yet to set its foot firmly in a civilized world. So in those days, there were not many printing presses. Most of the places in Odisha were very remote, having no communication, proper communication from one place to another. So it was during one such day, that is 18th August 1868, there was a drama to unfold at two different places. One was in Cuttack, which was the administrative capital of Odisha, from where the British government of those days functioned. Other place was a remote place in a rural setup. So a total solar eclipse was to occur on that particular day. Thus, this solar eclipse was to be total solar eclipse in Chennai, or today's Chennai. In those days, it was called Madras, and it was only a partial eclipse in Odisha. The interesting point is that in Odisha in those days, there was only one almanac which was which was followed by people of Odisha. That almanac or Panjika that came from Calcutta, and all the rituals or religious activities of those days was observed as per the timings and date prescribed by the Panjika that came from Calcutta. And on that particular year in 1868, a new Panjika based on calculation of a local astrologer was released in the market. So nobody knew about this particular astrologer whose predictions nobody were sure whether it is accurate or not accurate, whether Kali Panjika would be more accurate than this. So everybody waited with bated breath to see whose prediction becomes more accurate, the Bengali Panjika or the Odia Panjika. So we'll move on to the next slide, Joshi, please. Okay. Now the two Panjika, one is the Bengali Panjika. It predicted that the eclipse would start at 10 a.m. Whereas the Utkal Panjika, which is based on the local astrologer calculations, it said the eclipse would start at 8:29 a.m. So in Cuttack, Gauri Shankar was the of Utkal Panjika. He was the owner of the printing press. So he was very eager to see whose prediction is more accurate, because his business depended on this particular event. If the Utkal Panjika failed, then his investment would be totally wasted. And the other person, the local astrologer, who was several kilometers away from Cuttack in a rural setup, he was also eagerly waiting to check against the actual occurrence. So as the actual eclipse started, the observed timing was 8:47 a.m. Now we can pretty well see that Bengali Panjika said 10 a.m. whereas the Utkal Panjika said 8:29 a.m. So actual occurrence started at 8:47 a.m. So we can pretty well see that Utkal Panjika actually was more closer to the correct timing of the eclipse. Same thing happened also in case of the end of the total solar eclipse. It was again seen that the timing predicted by the local astrologer Utkal Panjika was more closer to the actual occurrence, that is 11:32 a.m. So with this, people of Odisha came to know about a great astrologer, and Utkal Panjika had the calculations of a local astrologer. Utkal, for information of the viewers, I would say that Utkal is another name for present day Odisha. So in past, it was known in various names as Kalinga, Odra, Kosala, Kangoda, Odisha, etc. So next slide. Next slide, Ojasvi. Okay. Now, the local astrologer whose calculations we have seen to be very precise, his name was Samanta Chandra Sekhar. In fact, his complete name would be Mahamahopadhyaya Chandra Sekhar Singha Samanta Harichandana Mahapatra. In the middle portion, Chandra Sekhar Singha Samanta was his family name. That Samanta term signified that he belonged to a royal family. And the Mahamahopadhyaya was a title given by the British administration of those days. And Harichandana Mahapatra is again another title which was given by the Gajapati king of Puri. Puri, as most of you might be knowing, it is the place where we have one of the four holy places for the Hindus, that is the Sri Jagannath temple. So Harichandana Mahapatra title was given by Gajapati king of Puri. However, despite such a long and glorious name, Samanta was popularly known by Pathani Samata. It may sound a little bit curious for most of you, but we'll see in the next subsequent slide why this Pathani term was attached to name of Samanta. Next slide. Now we'll have a look at the early life of Pathani Samanta. He was born on 13th December 1835 at Khandapada, which was then a feudatory state under the British government. And his father's name was Shyamabandhu and mother's name was Bisnomali. They had 9 children before Chandra Sekhar was born. Unfortunately, 2 of Chandra Sekhar's siblings had died at a very young age. In those days, the infant mortality rate was atrociously poor. So, because 2 children had died earlier, as per the prevailing custom or practice of those days, Chandra Sekhar's father and mother decided to sell off Chandra Sekhar to a wandering Muslim fakir. It was the custom in those days. If the boy is sold to a Muslim fakir of a very strange sounding name is given to the child, maybe he would be escaping wrath of the god of death, that is Jamaraj. So he was sold to a wandering Muslim fakir, and hence the name was given as Pathani, signifying Pathan, which is an Islamic term. So for rest of his life, Samanta was more popularly known as Pathani Samanta. Next slide. Now we'll have a look at his early life and kind of education Pathani Samanta had. He was homeschooled by a Brahmin teacher and learned Sanskrit grammar, Smriti, Purana, Darshan, and Kavyas. He only knew Sanskrit and Odia language throughout his life. He was introduced into astrology and astronomy at a very young age by one of his uncles, and soon after delved deep into study of Lilavati, Bijaganita, Jyotisha, and Vyakarana, etc., including astronomical treatises like Surya Siddhanta and Siddhanta Shiromani from the royal library. Since he belonged to a royal family, their royal household had a huge library, and he had full access to that library. So he was a voracious reader. So he kind of devoured all the books which were available in the library. And when he started seeing the astronomical treatises, he started watching the night sky. One of his uncle introduced him into watching the night sky. So he started observing the sky, and gradually, when he was familiar with the night sky, he started tallying them with the Siddhantas that he read in the library. He was very good in mathematics, mathematical calculation, and also very good at keeping notes of his observations. Next slide, Ojeshri. Now, we'll find that what are the contradicting things that he found regarding predictions which were contained in the Siddhantas versus his physical observations. So despite his repeated observations and calculations, he found that the predictions of the Surya Siddhanta and Siddhanta Shiromani did not agree to his observations. The stars and the planets, either they did not appear at the right place in the sky, or at the right time as contained in the Siddhantas. So initially he believed that maybe he was wrong in interpreting the Siddhantas. So he started cross-checking, more cross-checking, and he meticulously repeated his observations and calculations. And at one point of time, it occurred to him maybe the Siddhantas were containing certain errors, and for that to happen, actually, he must correct those uh, the procedures which were contained in the Siddhantas. And you would be surprised to know he was merely a boy of 15 at that point of time. So he decided that he would have to carry on a rigorous research regarding astronomy. So that is what he actually did. He devoted his whole life to carry on research regarding astronomy. Next slide. Now, at this point, we'll have a slightly look at the state of Indian astronomy. As we know, our Vedas also contain mentions of astronomical events. So we can safely say that India has a tradition of astronomical studies right from the Vedic era into the Vedanga era till the Siddhanta era. Siddhanta era actually started with Aryabhatta, and then we had great astronomers of India who came out with their own findings and Siddhantas, like Aryabhatta, Brahmagupta, Varahamihra, Sripati, Manjula, Bhaskara. There were two Bhaskaras, Bhaskar 1 and Bhaskar 2, then Nilakantha, and finally Chandrasekhar. And you would be really interested to know that all these Siddhanta era astronomers, they had one typical thing in common. They all were naked eye astronomers. So Chandrasekhar can be said to be the last in the series or last in the chain of Siddhanta era astronomers who, for all his life, he observed the stars only with a naked eye without any telescope. In fact, he was not aware about existence of a telescope. Next. Now, at the beginning of my talk, I said that Chandrasekhar was a positional astronomer. Now, what is that positional astronomer? Positional astronomer is a scientific study which involves, there are four main organs of positional astronomy. One is observation, the other is calculation, so third is instrumentation, and fourth is theory and model. I mean, whoever can be called an positional astronomer has to be involved in all these four branches of science. So Chandrasekhar, because he found that the Siddhantas that he was referring, namely the Siddhanta Shiromani and Siddhanta Surya Siddhanta, the predicted timings and predicted places for the planets were not matching with what he saw with his own eyes. So he had already taken decision to carry on rigorous research in the field, and for which he had to make some instrumentations. Without instrumentation, he would not be able to come to a solid conclusion. And then once he had some instruments and done some study, he has to come up with his own theory and a model of the universe, as has been done by the Siddhantic astronomers before him. It was only one thing, is that those Siddhantas were not working in the time that Pathani Samata was trying to cross-check the Siddhantas of those time. So in our subsequent slides, we will also see how he could actually develop some very critical yet very simple rudimentary instruments by using tools, by using things which were available around him. Next slide. Now, Pathani Samata, as I said, he was aware of developments happening outside Khandapada, that is his native place, and the advancement made in the astronomical field during those days. Especially, he never knew that there was a device called a telescope. So he used a simple everyday object around him to construct instruments, which gave him results which are surprisingly close to modern instruments. There is no description of any such instrument in any of the Siddhantas he was reading. So he conceptualized and actually built all his instruments all by himself. And it was totaling around 10 in number. So with help of these self-made instruments, he set about making observations and noting down, analyzing, calculating, and finally arriving at conclusions. So subsequent to this, he also developed a model of universe and predicted astronomical or celestial events, devised formulas, and his predictions were remarkably accurate, as we have already seen at the beginning of my presentation. Next. So this is one simple device that he devised. It is called the Chakra Jantra. One particular model is at the moment can be seen at Ravencha College premises, Chakra Jantra. This was primarily used to measure time. Next. This is again a Chapa Jantra. This also was used for measuring time, but with a little bit more accuracy. And this also kind of compensated for the northerly and southerly motion of the sun at different times of the year. So this is called Chapa Jantra. Next. This is a very interesting instrument that he made. In fact, he became so proficient in making this particular instrument that at later point we will see that if he went to some place and forgot to carry this instrument, he could make one right on the spot by utilizing whatever things were available around him at a very short notice. So this is called Dhanu Jantra. This was mostly used to know the angular displacement between the stellar object like two planets or stars. And also this was used by him very successfully to measure height of buildings and height of hills. And there is a legend that Samanta could also say at what height birds were flying. So this is called Dhanu Jantra. We'll move on to the next slide. This is called Manajantra. Manajantra, again, it is almost similar to the earlier device. This was again used for knowing the angular displacement of the heavenly bodies like planets and stars. Next slide, please. This is called Golardha Jantra. Again, this is for measuring time in a different context. So this is called Golardha Jantra. Next slide. So with help of these versatile instruments, he went about making observations and devising formula for astronomical calculations for 8 years. So by he was 23, he started systematically recording his observations. The only thing is that he was using palm leaf and iron stylus to record his observations. So 3 years later, he started writing his results in the form of Sanskrit slokas and made a treatise called Siddhanta Darpana, which was completed in 1869 when he was 34 years of age. So his work mainly consisted of new ways of calculating the almanac accurately and pointed out errors that were found to have crept into the earlier Siddhantas over a period of centuries. Next slide. Now, what are the corrections suggested by Pathani Samanta? So though this is not exhaustive, but these are few of the corrections we can see from Samanta's work. Samanta found a difference in 14 dandas between calculations found in older Siddhantas and his own observations, and he made corrections accordingly. Though he retained the sidereal period of the sun and moon in Surya Siddhanta, he made corrections such as such periods in case of other planets. Such corrections are very close to European astronomical finds. He also improved the observational finding of sun's parallax and also made three corrections in regard to determination of true moon, such as Tungantara, evection, Pakshika, variation, and Digamsa, that is annual equation. Next slide. Now, at this point, I would like to tell you a few interesting information about Pathani Samata. He could only speak and read and write Sanskrit and Odia, and never knew any other language other than this. And he was not aware about the invention of a telescope, was not aware about advancement in findings of modern astronomy, never went beyond Kotak and Puri. And the model that was developed by him was a geocentric. Even though it was a geocentric model, with his model, he could correctly predict the celestial events like eclipses, solar eclipses, and lunar eclipses. And Siddhanta Darpana, that is his epic work, remained as a manuscript written on palm leaf in Sanskrit verse for 25 years before it was possible to publish it in paper, in a book form. And he preferred to write on palm leaf, even though at that point of time, ink and paper were already used by people around him. But he preferred to write with palm leaf and iron stylus. Next slide, please. Now, one turning point came in life of Pathani Samata. And this we can say a watershed moment in his life. During official tour of one Sanskrit college principal to Khandapada region, he came to know about Pathani Samanta, and he interacted with Pathani Samanta and found that this man deserves to be, the whole world needs to know about this man's work. So he informed one professor, Jogesh Chandra Roy, who was teaching physical science in Ravenshaw College in Kotak. As I said, Kotak used to be the seat of the British administration in those days. It was the main city of Odisha. So Nyaratna, the principal of Sanskrit College, he informed Jogesh Chandra Roy about Pathani Samanta and also advised Pathani Samanta to go and meet Jogesh Chandra Roy. So in sometime in 1893, Pathani Samanta went all the way to Kotak and met Jogesh Chandra Roy. When Jogesh Chandra Roy first met Pathani Samanta, he was kind of skeptical, because Pathani Samanta was a very ordinary looking person, having absolutely no look of any scholar. So Professor Roy and his friends, they were not only skeptical, they wished to test Pathani Samanta's knowledge about astronomy. So it is said that when they first met, it was a evening time. So Jogesh Chandra Roy took Pathani Samanta outside his home and showed to the evening sky. And two visible planets were seen in the sky. Jogesh Chandra Roy asked Pathani Samanta, can you calculate and tell me what is the displacement between these two planets? So Pathani Samanta had carried his Manajantra, and he made few calculations and correctly said that the degree of separation between these planets is 6 degrees. So Jogesh Chandra Roy called for instruments from his college laboratory, and he himself checked and found that what Samanta had said actually was very correct. The next test that Jogesh Chandra Roy asked Samanta to do was to hand him a telescope, a 3-inch telescope, and showed him how to use it actually. So Pathani Samanta was kind of surprised to see this telescope, and he kept looking at the sky through the telescope, and lamented, if only I had such a device available to me in the last 10 years or 20 years that I was so passionately watching the night sky, I could have done some more work. Anyway, Jogesh Chandra Roy asked him, can you tell me what is the magnifying power of this telescope? So Pathani Samata took only a few minutes to look at the sky with naked eye and again through the telescope, and then correctly said the magnifying power is 50, which was again true. So Professor Rai was convinced that the person standing before him, even though looking very rustic, was a genius, nothing less than a genius. Next slide. So then Jogesh Chandra Roy came to know about Pathani Samanta's work, Siddhanta Darpana, which was in manuscript format, and it was gathering dust in corner of Pathani Samanta's house, since his efforts to get it published has gone futile till that point of time. Jogesh Chandra Roy took he kind of initiated the procedure for getting the Siddhanta Darpana published in a book form. Siddhanta Darpana was written in Sanskrit by using Odia script. So Jogesh Chandra Roy got it translated into Sanskrit in the Devanagari script. And in May 1898, Siddhanta Darpana was published in a form of a book. Professor Rai had written preface of Siddhanta Darpana in a 58 years tribute to the genius of Pathani Samanta. This, as per his opinion, Pathani Samanta was the last Pathani Samanta was the last in the series of naked astronomers of India, and his work was the last Siddhanta of ancient Indian astronomy. With publication of Siddhanta Darpana, Samanta's fame spread far and wide. Next. Now it was time for recognitions for Pathani Samanta. In November 1899, the British journal Knowledge commented, of all numerous works on astronomy that have been published within the last few years, this is by far the most extraordinary and in some respect the most constructive. It demonstrates the degree of accuracy with which was possible in astronomical observations before invention of the telescope, and it enables us to watch as it were one of the astronomers of the hoary forgotten antiquity actually at his work before us today. Next. Then in the same year, in the March 9th issue of Science Journal Nature, Professor Rai published an article on Pathani Samanta, and he compared Samanta's work to another great astronomer of the European world, Tycho Brahe. But Nature magazine also said that while comparing Samanta to Tycho Brahe, we should imagine him to be greater than Tycho. At this point, I would like to say a few things about why Samantas was compared with Tycho Brahe. Now, Tycho Brahe, like Pathani Samanta, was born into a royal family. Tycho Brahe, in his childhood, he received his education in Latin, like Samanta received his education in Sanskrit. So what is Sanskrit to India at that point of time? Latin was also in the same way to Europe. Then Tycho Brahe was introduced to astronomy or night sky watching by one of his uncle. So was Pathani Samanta. Pathani Samanta was introduced to astronomy by one of his uncles. Then Tycho Brahe's family felt disgraced by this common man-like activity of Tycho. In the case of Pathani Samanta also, same thing happened. All through his life, his family was very skeptic of his work. He belonged to a royal family, but then his activities were more like a common astrologer. So he was often ridiculed to the extent that the king, who also belonged to his family, the king was his main adversary. At every point in life, his king tried. In fact, he acted in a contradicting manner Pathan's work. And the people around, the villagers, his own kin, everybody ridiculed Pathan for his work, which they could not actually comprehend what this man is doing. Tycho Brahe was a deeply religious person, so was Pathani Samanta. But at this point, we'll see there are a lot many things which are not common between the two. First thing is Tycho Brahe had university education. Pathani Samanta never attended a formal school from the modern education. Then Tycho Brahe had patronage. The King Ferdinand was always very supportive of. He in fact made one observatory and gave it away to Tycho Brahe to carry on his passion about watching and experimenting with the night sky. As Pathani Samanta even though he belonged to royal family, but he himself was almost a pauper. He was very extreme. Then Tycho Brahe friends, I mean VIP with royal friends, and Pathani Samanta had none of those luxuries. Next slide. Now we'll see further recognition for Pathani Samanta. In Odisha, there was a need for a better almanac for Puri Sri Jagannath temple and also for Odisha. The Bengali almanac of that time was based on Bhaswati Karan of Satananda, a noted astronomer of 11th century from Puri. The whole state was watching closely the accurate predictions of total solar eclipse of 1868 by Samanta and subsequent wide coverage in newspapers of the day. So when Pathani Samanta's predictions came true and it was widely reported in the local newspaper, Gajapati, king of Puri, he also came to know about it and he invited Pathani Samanta and conferred the title Harichandana Mahapatra in 1870, much before his book was published and his work was discussed in Nature and Knowledge magazine. Then also Gajapati of Puri convened a meeting of Sanskrit scholars and astronomers from Varanasi and Ujjain. In the meeting, they discussed about Samanta's work and everybody had a consensus on adopting Samanta's almanac for conducting the rituals of Puri Jagannath temple. And finally, in 1876, Samanta's Panjika was adopted by the Puri Jagannath temple. Next. Now, this is the most dignified of the recognitions that was conferred on Pathani Samanta. The then British government, after coming to know of the scholarly works of Samanta, decided to felicitate him with honor of Mahamahopadhyaya in 1893. So Samanta lived in a rural setup, which is Khandapada, which was very far from any communicable place. So he had to move to Calcutta by ship, and because he was a Orthodox Hindu, traveling in a ship was something that was not an acceptable form of going to a place. So Samanta declined to go to Calcutta for the felicitation, or else the then Viceroy Lansdowne himself wished to felicitate Pathani Samanta. It is also said that his nephew, who was king of Khandapada, he did not allow him to go out of Khandapada because by this time he was kind of very jealous, seeing the popularity of Samanta all through the state and the British government. So Samanta declined to go. and the British government decided that they would send one emissary to Cuttack to give the recognition and also give some monthly stipend to Pathani Samanta. Next slide, please. Now, the emissary, Mr. Cook, he arrived at Kotak to hand over the award to Pathani Samanta. And before doing so in a ceremony, he met Pathani Samanta in the collector's office of Kotak. And he himself wished to test how this rustic looking man actually got such a huge recognition from the Viceroy of India. So he asked Samanta to calculate height of a hill that was seen from the collector's office in Cuttack. And Kotak, there is a big river flowing adjacent to Kotak. It is called Kathajodi. Beyond Kathajodi, there was a hill which could be seen. The name of hill was Saptasajya. So Cook asked Pathani Samanta, "Can you please tell me what is the height of these hills?" So unfortunately, on that particular day, Samanta did not carry his Manajantra. So when Cook went to the collector's office to fetch the revenue records regarding what is the actual height of Saptasajya Hill, Pathani Samanta made one Manajantra right then and there by taking help of a local carpenter. And in a very short time, he made the jantra, and with that jantra or the instrument, he correctly predicted the height of the Saptasajya hills. So by the time the Cook came back with the revenue records, he found that the height calculated by Samanta, though exactly not same to the revenue records, it was very, very close. So he was convinced that the British government is felicitating a deserving person. And there is one also a small incident attached to this particular ceremony. When Samanta wanted to visit Cuttack to receive this honor, his king, that is his nephew, king, did not allow him to go to Cuttack. So who came to know that Samanta, even though he is willing to come to Cuttack, is not allowed by his king. He issued a warrant of arrest against the king. So the king came to know about this, and he pleaded with his uncle, "Please save me from this imminent danger. So kindly apprise the British officer Cook and save me from this disgrace." So this is also one interesting incident by which you would know how Samanta was working in a very disadvantageous situation. Even nothing deterred him from his single-minded objective to carry on his research about the sky and the astronomical events. Next. In 2001, Government of India released one postage stamp in memory of Pathani Samanta, and also in recognition of his seminal work about astronomy. Next. Government of Odisha has done many things in memory of Pathani Samanta. If you come to Bhubaneswar, you will find one planetarium which has been named after Pathani Samanta. Next. Also in the State Museum of Odisha, that is in Bhubaneswar, one can see original palm leaf which was used by Samanata Chandra Sekhar, including his iron stylus with which he used to write, and also his Manajantra. So it is displayed at the State Museum in Bhubaneswar for everyone to see. Next. A museum has been constructed at his native place, that is in Khandapada. Next. So, this is how there was a great man who was born in Odisha, and we can say he was in a way responsible for reviving the national feeling of Odias to take pride in their heritage, to take pride in their history. He kind of placed Odisha's science on a national platform. Uh, then we'll come to see how Pathani Samata passed away on 13th of December 1904 after a bout of fever and infection, and thus ended an era of Siddhantic tradition of India, as he said to be the last of the Siddhantic astronomers of India. He belonged, without his knowing, to the Indian Renaissance and performed the rare act of reviving and improving upon old knowledge. Next. So thank you. Thank you for listening patiently to me about a great son of soil of Odisha. Thank you, Joshi. Thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you very much, sir. It was very insightful, and thank you for shedding light on an astronomer that has played pivotal role in, like you said, the renaissance of Indian knowledge systems. We have two very esteemed speakers who have actually joined us today, who also have very pertinent role to play in making sure that the glory of Odisha reaches on national and international platforms. I would request them to maybe ask a few questions or comment on this particular presentation.
Thank you, Ojasri. It was so nice of you. First of all, great presentation, sir. It was really good. I mean, plethora of informations and all. Just want to add a couple of more things which, I mean, growing up in Odisha, we have heard about Pathani Samanta. Number one, as sir said, he was a great scholar of Sanskrit, and also he was not that noble looking. By his look, he was not very like a wise person or something. When he went for his marriage, in the day of marriage, because he was from a royal family, he was also getting married in another royal family. They, after seeing his face, thought he's actually some fraud. He's not a royal guy, so they thought of no, I mean, denied that marriage. It is only when he started responding to the queries in Sanskrit, not the local language, that is Odia. Then they realized he was not an ordinary guy, and it's told that he has convinced everybody present in that marriage ceremony about his knowledge and his. I mean, he made a chap there that who he is. Number two, not just an astronomer, he was a great astrologer also. I mean, he has predicted his own death when he will die. His death, actually, though he was from Khandapata, he went all the way to Puri to, I mean, because it is a holy pilgrimage place where we believe if somebody die, he will attend moksha. So these two things, I mean, some insights about Samanta Chandra Sekhar Pathani Samanta. And once again, great presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Soumya, for adding this to valuable informations.
Thank you very much, Soumya Anaji. Anything that Preeta ma'am would like to add?
Hello.
Yes, you're audible, ma'am.
Hello. Hello, Ojasri, thank you. This is Preeta. Thank you, Sunil sir, for such a beautiful presentation. Actually, I'm outside in a crowded place. That's why I'm just writing in the messages. This is a much needed topic, that much needed personality. Entire India, entire world should know about, not just Odias in particular, because the contributions of Pathani Samanta are so immense that the more we say, even words are not enough for because right now the Indic Renaissance is going. We're trying to revive all our forgotten names and all. So hopefully this great son of the soil, a great scientist, great astronomer, one of the last of the same lineage as so many famous names, needs to be, known more and more by everyone. So thank you for this presentation talk, and thank you for hosting this. That's all I would say.
Thank you, Prita Madam.
Thank you once again, Sunil sir. This brings us to the end of the session. We wish to have many such talks with you. Namaste.
Namaskar. Thank you.